Hi, I'm Steve with the Iowa DNR. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about calling ducks and geese today. The great thing about waterfowl hunting, there's a lot of variety, a lot of different stuff that you can do out there, but the great thing is you work the call, you're going to bring the birds to you. So communicating with the wildlife is a lot of fun. Talking about duck calls first, there's a lot of different varieties, a lot of different materials, whether it's wood, plastics, or acrylics, and they're from very inexpensive to several $100s per call. So it doesn't really matter. It's personal preference. Whatever you can make sound good, and getting the right location, that's going to be the biggest key. But with a little bit of effort, you can learn to make some really good sounds that'll help you be successful in the field. So the first kind of duck call we're going to talk about is a single reed call, hence the name. There's one reed. Pretty easy to remember. And a double reed call has two reeds, one stacked on top of the other. There's some variations of that, but in general, if you're going with the Arkansas style duck call, that's probably the most popular anymore. Single reed and double reed calls. Double reed calls are a little bit more forgiving. The single reed calls are not really any louder, but maybe a little bit more enunciation in your notes, so to speak. When we talk about the different materials, wood calls are very pretty, look great, great sound. A wooden duck call can be affected by the weather just a little bit. So if you have an all wood call, you want to take care of it. The plastics and the acrylics, they're impervious to weather. You can't really destroy them. When we're talking about goose calls, a couple different kinds. The old resonant chamber calls, just make the honk. That was the older style from decades ago. Moved into the flute style calls. Obviously the shape gives them their name. And the more popular thing now is the short reed type call, whereas it's just that. The great thing, if you want to get into short reed calling, it's very similar to holding a duck call and manipulating the air with your mouth and diaphragm. So it works out really well if you want to try and learn how to do both of those. So we're going to start a little bit today with how to use a duck call and some of the sounds you can make. I guess the other thing I should mention is a duck whistle that will help you make some of the sounds of the other species. Generally, when we talk about duck calling, we're going to talk about calling mallards. Mallards are kind of the bread and butter of the duck hunting world. Most of the other ducks will respond to mallard calling or work mallard decoys. So that's probably where you should start. But we're just going to grab this duck call. It happens to be a double reed call, and you're going to grab the call, hold it between your thumb and index finger, wrap your fingers around, keep these three fingers off to the side. We're going to use that to kind of deflect the sound. Whether you're right or left-handed, that doesn't really matter. One thing to remember is keep that other hand free to hold your shotgun, and make sure that that's safe while you're out hunting. So the first sound you're going to want to make is the quack. And you can say quack, you can say quit, you can say something into the call, but you're going to keep a tight diaphragm. You keep your cheeks tight and your lips tight, just like you're taking a drink out of this call. Turn around backwards so you can hear. But just like we're taking a drink out of the call, you're going to say or quack, 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 something like that. It's really that simple. Quit. That's your first sound. If you can master that, ducks flying by are going to hear that. First thing we do is try and get their attention. There's some quacks, try and get their attention, make it sound like there's a couple of different ducks on the water. You can turn your call this way, turn your call down, moving the call around and make it sound like different ducks. If they turn towards you, great, then you're gonna keep doing what you're doing. Some quacks, maybe some feeding chuckles, and that sort of thing. So as they get closer, we'll do that. You're just going to kind of keep doing that as the ducks come in closer. If the ducks are looking right at you, you don't want to call because they're going to pick you out. They're going to see the movements. You try to call ducks on the corners, either when they're flying away from you or at their sides. If they don't act like they're real interested, you give them a little bit more emphatic calling. You kind of get after them a little bit. It's a little bit more seriousness to the call, and try and plead with them to come back to you. So that's kind of the general duck calling sound with the mallard call, which all these other ducks respond to. The wood ducks here, they're not real responsive to a mallard call, but they will work the decoys. The pintail, that's another duck that will work the decoys. But with this duck whistle, you can make calls that the pintails like. You're just twirling your tongue, plugged into the duck whistle. Very inexpensive call, from a couple dollars to, they're usually under 10 bucks. As the ducks get in closer, obviously not a very loud call. You can make your mallard calls, ducks come in closer. Yeah, once they start hearing that helps finish the pintails. You can also make a mallard drake whistle with this, so by saying dweek into the call. That's how the drake mallard sounds. The quacking is the hen mallard. If there are some wood ducks in the area, wood duck decoys make them real susceptible to calling. You know, 2 wheat into the call. Wood ducks aren't real receptive to calling. Occasionally you can have a little bit of luck. Widgeon and gadwalls, pintails, they're those early migrators. They're going to come in a lot. You can still use mallard decoys. If you have some species-specific decoys, that'll help. But you'll hear the widgeon when you're out in the marsh. Just kind of a whistle back and forth. Doing some of that as the widgeon are working is really going to help out. Mix that in with the mallard call. It'll help you finish the ducks into range. The gadwall, a lot of people call them gray mallards in different parts of the country. They're going to make a quack. They're just going to work the mallard call just like normal. There's several different goose species that we can hunt as well. We have the snow geese. This is a blue-faced snow goose, white-faced snow goose. There's also a Ross goose, which looks like a smaller snow goose. A little bit different bill shape. They're obviously a different species, but shorter bill versus the snow and a smaller body. So that's one way to identify them. We have the white-fronted goose or the speckle belly, and then the Canada goose, which everybody's real familiar with. There's a lot of subspecies of Canadas, from small to giant Canadas. And a couple different types of calls for them. Like we mentioned, the older calls from decades ago, they call them resonant chamber calls, where just a honk and maybe some murmuring and that sort of thing. At the old flute style calls, really easy to use and very, very popular for years. They're kind of coming back again. Everything in history is cyclic. When you're going to blow the flute call, a lot of air volume, actually a lot of air in your cheeks and deep breath, and not as much volume with this particular call as others, but you're just going to make that honk. Goose call, you do the same thing, and you can butt the palms of your hands together to kind of make a chamber. You get a little bit of back pressure on the calls, and for the low part of the growl, and then as you let go of the honk, the second part, you kind of inflect that sound. Flute call is real mellow sound. It's really nice on small bodies of water and in smaller areas where you don't want to blow the geese out of the air with too much volume. Now the short reeds, a lot of variability with them, and we're making the sounds of the Canada goose. I should have probably said that. Depending on the size of the exhaust, you can have a very loud call or a call that's a little bit more with a little bit more controlled sound. So if you're hunting wide open water or a cornfield where you need a lot of volume, that's a lot different than hunting a small marsh where you want to have a little bit more of a content goose and not trying to blow them out of the area. So same deal with the short reed call. Again, like I said earlier, I liked if I was going to start a new duck caller out, I would start them with a duck call and a short reed call, because you're keeping your diaphragm tight, keeping your cheeks tight and your lips tight. Hold the call the same, just like you're taking a drink out of that call. But with a short reed, you put your hands together versus a duck call where you just keep them apart. So we're going to say gur-wit or two-wit. Everybody's mouth is a little bit different. Keep your tongue back, and almost like in football when you say hut, 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 you're keeping your tongue back, and when you break that call, your tongue's going to hit the top of your mouth. And just by changing your hand, you can change the sound of the call, and that gives quite a bit difference. You can sound like a couple different geese. Turn your head to one side, call at the geese, go to the other side, hands like this, hands like that. You can sound like multiple different geese. So if you can honk, you get 2 or 3 buddies in the blind honking along with you, and that sounds like a flock of geese. So you're just trying to get the geese attention of a passing flock of geese. Do some honks like that. That'll get their attention. As they get a little closer, you pick up the pace, and you can do what they call a double cluck or some of the other sounds. Which is basically the honk in reverse. If you turn the call around backwards, it'd sound like this. That's the honk. That's the sound you're trying to make through your call, and holding it like that the whole time. So if there's flock geese come by, we get their attention. We do some of the double clucking. If they're getting a little close, you don't want to call to them. They're going to pick you out, so you just make some murmurs into your call. That's the sound that geese make when they're feeding. Don't call them when they're working towards you. Call in the corners, either the sides or their tail feathers. They go away, bleed at them, they're leaving, you might as well try and get them to come back to you. We talk a little bit about etiquette, either in the field or marsh. If you're hunting our public areas, what we need you to do is work those geese went over your decoys. When they move on, let somebody else work them. Everybody will be more successful if that happens. So that was the Canada goose sound. A lot of short reeds, you can adjust the reed. They make calls specific to the white front and the snow goose. And the white fronted goose sounds a little bit like this, and you're gonna use your diaphragm to control that sound. It's a 3-note sound. That's the sound of the white-fronted goose. They're very susceptible to decoying, especially here in Iowa, because not a lot of people hunt them. So if you get in some, we're seeing quite a few in the western side of the state, some in north central Iowa, a few sneaking down the east side, but very susceptible to calling. If you use the decoys, obviously the colors stand out, the geese see them, and you can hunt them together. Snow geese tend to separate themselves in bigger bunches from the dark geese, but the snow goose sounds are easy to make too, and it's just a real high-pitched honk. Again, they're pretty easy. They're pretty susceptible to calling. So, a lot of sounds there real quickly. Kind of gives you the idea what we're after. But don't get wrapped up in thinking you have to spend a lot of money on calls to start out. You can buy something at any store. My best advice would be to find an experienced waterfowler, somebody that you're comfortable with that can help you out. Maybe borrow a call from them, give one that they've switched out of or bought something a little bit nicer, in their opinion. But don't spend a lot of money to get started. Find out what you like. Buy a double reed call, a single reed call, maybe a short reed, and move on from there.